All right, July 9th had a nice sell trade this morning on Nasdaq. So before we get into it, I want to give you the framework for the setup. The setup today was based off of previous week's high, but in this drawing, it's called the previous day sell trade. One thing to keep in mind is even though the PD array that I'm using as my diagram says previous day's high here, the PD array could also mean previous week high or previous month high. So that's one thing to just keep in mind before I get into the chart. The PD array that I did use today was previous week's high. All right, so let's take a look at the setup. So this morning, as you can see, my London session high was already taken out and we didn't have any news in the morning. So the only news we had for the day was FOMC meeting minutes, and meeting minutes is not the FOMC release. Okay, so the market doesn't really anticipate meeting minutes like the actual FOMC. It's kind of just a whatever type of deal. So instead of there being this consolidation in the morning, price kind of just rallied up shortly after market open. Take a look at where price is right now. I'm in replay and then I'll get to the recording at the end, but just take a look at where this high here from 9 a.m. I'm on the hourly chart here. The high of 9 a.m. on S&P actually made an exact equal high with our high from Monday. So Monday's high was 6,315 and a quarter, and the 9 a.m. high was exactly 6,015 and a quarter. But what's interesting is if you look at Nasdaq here on the right, price is approaching previous week's high. Now, to compare where previous week's high is on S&P, if I zoom out here, you can see that we're way far off the exact same level in relation to Nasdaq, right? Because Nasdaq had already taken out Monday's high early on, right, in the same candle. So you can see that there is some divergence between the two. All right, if I hit play, just go to the next candle. Okay, did not want to. Yes, this is what I want to do. So yeah, this is what it looks like here. Instead of actually taking out those equal highs, price reverses on S&P. This is why I focused on Nasdaq, because I wanted to focus on the market that actually reached into the liquidity pool. The liquidity pool was previous week's high for this trade, okay? So looking back at my framework, I am needing price to go above a liquidity pool in order to begin looking for my entry, right? So again, just over here, if I can I move this? Yes. Sometime after or before 9:30, I'm looking for that liquidity raid, and then from there within my entry window, I'm looking for the reversal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this back one candle, and then I'm going to drop down to the 15-minute to show you what I was looking for. All right, so as I go to the next candle now on the 15-minute, all right, at 10 o'clock, this is when we got the reach above previous week's high. Once I saw price reach above, I dropped down to the 5-minute to look for the first bearish engulfing that appeared. So you can see that there is a bearish engulfing over here on S&P on the left, but I'm not focused on that market because it did not go above those equal highs, okay? So my attention is completely on the Nasdaq, and I'm just looking for the first bearish engulfing that pops up. I get that right here at 10:15 on the close of that candle. I'll draw it out. Once I got confirmation of that bearish engulfing, I dropped down to the 1-minute, and I'll show you where my entry was. Here on the 1-minute, this is where my entry came in off of this inversion fair value gap here. So the inversion fair value gap is from 10 a.m. all right, and my entry was on that level, and I made a mistake here on trade locker. I thought I put my stop above the swing high from 10:16, but I put it above the swing high here from 10:13. Complete accident on my part. So it was about a 24.5 point stop, and I needed to get 3R off of that. So here's what that trade looked like. All right, and fortunately, right, with a stop that big, it's not guaranteed that I'm going to get anywhere near 3R. I would say today I got lucky. With the mistake that I made, today I got lucky. Because if my stop was where I thought it was, I would have been out of this trade much sooner, obviously, right? I would have only had a 13.5 point stop. But in the case of having 24, I just made a mistake because I think I was shrinking the chart on trade locker, and so it looked much smaller than it did in real time. But I'll show you that screenshot as well. But here is the trade. It's hitting play here. I get tapped in, and then price proceeds to drop from that inversion fair value gap. All right, so that was my trade from this morning, and here is the replay. I'll also put in the screenshot from trade locker.